Welcome to the Top 5 Gainers and Top 5 Losers analysis as of March 1, 2019. My name is JZ de Guzman, and today's Top 5 Gainers are the following. So we're going to talk about ATN, ABA, SLI, LTG, and finally ATNB. For the Top 5 Losers, we're going to talk about BDO, FB, Green, SCC, and DNL. So let's start it off with ATN, the first top gainer for today. So let's take a look at the chart of ATN. So today ATN closed with a green candlestick, getting support coming from the volume, as today's volume obviously closed above it's a 10-day volume average, and today's candlestick also increased the gap above the 10-day simple moving average. What I specifically like about today's trading for ATN is its towering volume, because when the stock registers a green candlestick and it came with a towering volume, especially if it's above the 10-day volume average, that particular scenario or combination, it could mean that the ascent in price is likely to be sustained. So that's one particular thing I would like to highlight about ATN in this case. Another bullish indicator that I see here is its MACD. So today ATN's MACD also inch higher than the position of the signal line. That kind of combination, the position of the price above the 10-day simple moving average and the position of the MACD line above the signal line, that's the kind of combination we would want to see, particularly in a stock that we are trading on a short-term basis. Risk-wise, ATN has already entered the moderate risk level because it now has a historical volatility score of 51%. That doesn't mean that ATN is no longer a tradable stock. For one, a confirmed buy signal actually appeared today. If you are familiar already about our 10 SMA and MACD combo, today that confirmed buy signal came into existence. So by Monday next week, you may want to consider doing a test buy on ATN. Nonetheless, I would also suggest that you consider the possible risk. So if you have a sizable capital for short-term trading, I would suggest that you allocate a relatively small percentage of that for ATN. Meanwhile, the main support is situated at 1.36, while the major resistance is already at 1.64. Please do take note that the 61.8% of the Fibonacci extension is positioned at 1.53. The reason why I was somewhat risk averse with my recommendation for you to do a test buy on this stock on Monday or next week is that there's a possibility for the price to reverse once it hits 1.53, being that that's the golden ratio. Now, if you have already heard me talk about what this golden ratio of Fibonacci is, classical belief and classical previous performances show that when the price hits this golden ratio of Fibonacci, the price also reverses its direction. So there's a possibility for the ascent in price to bounce away from 1.53 and retest the previous support at 1.36. So consider that, factor in that as well in your decision. Now, should you decide to trade ATN next week, let's take a look first at the volume review of ATN, of this particular stock. So today ATN closed at, again, 1.52. Its intraday high is 1.53 with an intraday low of 1.43. 22% of today's volume was printed at 1.52, while 21% was printed at 1.51. If there's a particular range here that you need to pay close attention to, especially if you would really want to pursue trading ATN next week, I would suggest monitor the price between 1.5 and 1.52. 1.5 and 1.52. There's something noteworthy as well between at 1.46 and 1.47. And what is that thing that's noteworthy? It's the number of trades. Okay, 1.4, even though 1.46 and 1.47 did not get a significant size in terms of volume, they got a relatively high numbers when it comes to the number of trades. So for next week, I would suggest that you first monitor 1.5 up to 1.52 and also put into consideration 1.46 and 1.47. My overall sentiment on ATN is neutral to bullish. It's neutral to bullish. If you do have a position on ATN, assuming you bought ATN somewhere at 1.36, be mindful of your trailing stop loss so that you don't trade beyond what you can only handle when it comes to risk. Now, if you bought ATN above 1.45, let's say, it's all the more that you need to watch on this particular stock, because you need to consider those things that I mentioned a while back. There's a possibility for the price to reverse at 1.53. Now, if you don't have ATN yet, what you can do is do a test buy near 1.5, if possible, near 1.48 or 1.47 to those two prices that I mentioned a while back, 1.46 and 1.47. Okay. Now, if you see a strong demand, if you see a big volume being printed under the bid-ask spread, or specifically in the ask spread next week, I would suggest then that's when you need to top up, or you buy up, increase your holdings on ATN, and ride on to the momentum. So that's my overall sentiment and recommendation for ATN. Now let's move on to the second top gainer as of March 1, 2019, which is ABA. So let's take a look at the chart of ABA. So Abacor Capital Holdings Incorporated closed at 0.75 today with an intraday high of 0.76 and an intraday low of 0.72. Main support is at 0.6. Main resistance is at 0.86. Today, the price managed to inch a little bit higher than its 10-day simple moving average. Alignment-wise, as far as the alignment of the simple moving averages is concerned, I like what I'm seeing right now because the shorter-term SMAs are above the longer-term ones. On the other hand, foreign investors they're not quite interested. It seems that they're not yet interested to trade on ABA. So, well, that's historically speaking, they have not been interested to trade on ABA because, as we can see here, they have just been, just trading a few, a pretty slim. They have a very weak participation on ABA, so to speak. They're not even trading above 5 million pesos on a daily basis. For the past 5 trading days, they did nothing but register net foreign selling, although that's just a minimal amount. So I'm not going to factor in the participation of foreign investors in my overall sentiment on ABA. Despite the bullish structure of the simple moving averages, MACD does not support that sentiment because MACD at the moment is below the signal line. ABA also has an extremely high risk level. Why? Because it's now playing a historical volatility score of 108%. Okay, so if today's volume, although today's volume is above, it's a little bit higher than its 10-day volume average. Although it's a little bit higher than its 10-day volume average, we prefer to see a bigger volume than this, a volume that's bigger than this, so that this ascent in price, particularly above the 10 SMA, will be continue. There will be a sustain. It could be sustained. So we prefer a higher volume. Okay, now if and when ABA will only register, a sideways pattern in terms of daily volume, then there's a tendency for this stock to just uh, regress or revisit the previous support at zero point 0.6. So it's all about volume now, as usual. Now, let's take a look at the volume review for ABA. 0.75 got 55% of today's volume, while 0.74 got 33% of today's volume as well. So if there are two price points that you need to watch out for next week, I would suggest you pay close attention between 0.74 and 0.76, or 0.74 and 0.75. I'm not going to include 0.76 because it only got 39 trades. Okay, so 0.74 and 0.75, those two price points may act as intraday support or intraday resistance by next week, particularly on Monday. If you do have ABA, let's assume you were able to buy ABA somewhere near 0.60. You may want to just do a trade the range strategy, meaning to say, if and when the price draws closer to 0.86, it's either you sell your position there or you stick with your trailing stop loss, like what I've been advising in our private clients forum. Now, if you bought ABA above 0.70, you need to dedicate more time observing its by the second price movement, because it's not too far. ABA is only at 0.75 now, and if you bought around or near 0.70, I don't think you have already reached the break-even point, or maybe you are just on the break-even price right now when it comes to your average price. Now, if you don't have ABA yet, do I suggest that you enter a new position on ABA? Not yet. Not yet. Why? I prefer to see MACD crossing above the signal line and the price staying above the 10-day simple moving average. Okay, so what's my overall sentiment on ABA? I'm actually neutral to bullish as well. I'm not completely bullish, so there's still a part of me that says that I have to be risk averse on ABA. So that's why I have a neutral to bullish sentiment on ABA. Now let's move on to our third top gainer for today. We have SLI, or Santa Lucia Land Incorporated. So let's take a look at its chart. So Santa Lucia Land Incorporated closed at 1.54 today with an intraday high of 1.57 and an intraday low of 1.42. As far as the alignment of the simple moving averages is concerned, I like what I'm seeing, because the shorter term moving averages are hovering above the longer term averages. Volume wise, it's pretty impressive, since today's volume registered a volume bar that's higher than its 10-day volume average. And there's also another bullish indicator that I see on MACD, as MACD line is moving above the signal line. On the other hand, it seems that SLI is not getting any support from the foreign investors. How did I know? Because foreign investors registered a measly amount of 4,000 pesos of net foreign buying on SLI today. For year-to-date, let's take a look at the year-to-date participation of the foreign investors. Let me just check on the graph in here. Okay, so SLI is on a net foreign selling mode year-to-date for 2019. What's the risk level of SLI? SLI now still has a low risk level, since it has a historical volatility score of 46%. Now, the major support is situated at, you can say that the support is at 1.48 because the price is already at 1.54. But I would still say that major support is at 1.33, which is in confluence with the 61.8% Fibonacci retracement. the golden ratio. So support is at 1.33, while the psychological resistance, let me zoom in this chart so we can check what's above 1.48. So psychological resistance is at 1.72. That's 161.8% of the Fibonacci extension. That's the other golden ratio on the higher end of the Fibonacci chart. Okay, so that's where the psychological resistance is. Again, 1.72. Now let's take a look at the volume review or the price volume distribution of SLI. Today, 1.54 got the biggest volume, garnering 15% of today's volume, followed by 1.53 with 11%, and the third spot was given to 1.52 with 9%. So if there's the particular range that you need to watch out for next week would be 1.52 to 1.54. Okay, so my overall sentiment on, oh, hold on. You need to watch out for 1.42 as well, because I thought a while back that 1.54 got the highest volume. I stand corrected. 1.42 got the highest volume for today with 29 or almost 30%, followed by 1.54 and 1.53 and then 1.52. So next week, you have to monitor two things. The first one is the singular price point, which is 1.42. Okay, 1.42. But because of this number of trades, take a look at this one. Even though 1.42 got 39% of today's volume, it only got 5 trades, just 5 trades. So there's a high probability that 1 or 2 of those 5 trades were actually cross trades. As you've heard it from me in the past, we disregard cross trades in our volume analysis. So I think I would go back to my previous stand that you will have to monitor 1.52 to 1.54 only. Okay, so monitor 1.42, 1.52 to 1.54. Ignore 1.42 for now, at least for now. Okay. My overall sentiment on SLI is actually bullish. I'm particularly bullish on SLI. If you don't have a position on SLI yet, you can do a test buy within that range that I mentioned a while back, 1.52 to 1.54. If it retreats, try to wait near 1.48. If you already have SLI, stick with your trailing stop loss, especially if you bought SLI below 1.40 level. Now, if you chase the stock above 1.40, okay, still stick with your trailing stop loss. Stick with your trailing stop loss. Remember, the psychological resistance is still quite far at 1.72. Okay, now let's move on to the fourth top gainer for today. So we have LTG. Let's take a look at the chart of LTG. So today LTG closed at 15.24 with an intraday high of 15.24 as well. And its intraday low is at 14.76. It seems that the support at 14.57 is being respected by LTG, but we don't know yet. Perhaps that's too early to tell, especially that today's candlestick was not supported with a significant volume. How did I say that today's volume is not that significant? Of course, it's below the 10-day moving average. So, and also the net foreign trade is not that huge. Although it's a net foreign buying, it's only a measly amount of nearly 5 million pesos for today. And when it comes to the position of MACD, it seems that MACD is now just a very few, just a few points above the signal line. So I'm not seeing any clarity yet. As early as now, I don't see any clarity as to whether MACD will continue its ascend it's a cent above the signal line. It's too early to tell. So if you're going to ask me if I see a confirmed buy signal coming from the 10 SMA and MACD, I still don't see that signal yet. Besides, today's closing price is still below the position of the 10 simple moving average. So negative on that part. Okay, and LTG has a low risk level because of its historical volatility score of 38%. Moreover, LTG is still moving inside the bearish territory in terms of long-term time horizon, simply because the longer-term moving averages are all above the shorter-term moving averages. That's not the kind of alignment that we want to see. And if we want to trade a stock that's moving in a bullish trend, so we want to see the opposite alignment of those moving averages. So let's take a look at the price volume distribution of LTG. Today, 14.8 got nearly 48% of today's volume, followed by 14.82 with about 11%, and then followed by 14.84 with about 8%. And then if there's a particular range that you need to monitor here, I would say you need to monitor first 15.24 next week. Now, if there's a weak start for LTG, especially in the first 15 to 30 minutes, and it seems that 1524 does not seem to be sustainable, I would say you start monitoring 14.8 all the way to 14.86 then. So again, start monitoring next week at 15.24. If there's a weak demand, if there's there's not much buyers, there's no strong demand from buyers to buy the stock up above for 15.24, then you adjust your adjust the zone where you want to monitor LTG, and that's between 14.80 and 14.86. My overall sentiment on LTG remains bearish, even though the stock made it to the top 5 gainers for March 1, 2019. So my overall sentiment is bearish. If you do have a position on LTG, let's say you entered a position on this stock sometime in October last year, then I would say you should have already sold your position when the price moved below 16.4 or maybe below 16 pesos. Okay, if you bought LTG sometime in October last year, you should have already sold your position by now. Now, if you bought LTG when it hit its December high of 17.40, by now I think you should have already sold your position as well with minimal losses. Well, I know it's on a case-to-case basis depending on what your percentage of risk tolerance is. But don't wait for the price to go below 14.57, because even when that happens, it's going to be extra difficult to watch your portfolio, shedding some blood, because if it goes below 14.57, the next support that we're looking at is already quite deep at 12.82. Okay, the immediate resistance is at 17.35. But again, I am particularly attracted on the downside potential right now. I think the downside potential is more stronger than the upside potentials. That's why I'm bearish on LTG. If you don't have a position on LTG yet, then wait for the price to move above the 10 SMA and for MACD to inch higher than the signal line. So that's it for LTG. Now let's take a look at ATNB, our 5th top gainer for March 1, 2019. ATNB is the Class B or Type B for ATN Holdings. So let's take a look at the chart. ATNB closed at 1.51 today with an intraday high of 1.52, while the intraday low is at 1.43. The price is already moving above the 10-day simple moving average, and it's also interesting to see that MACD already crossed above the signal line. Another bullish indicator that I see here is the registration of volume above the 10-day volume average. And the foreign investors also registered 571,000 pesos worth of net foreign buying. We all know that's not a significant amount, so we're not going to consider the participation of foreign investors in our, I'm not going to use that to derive my overall sentiment for ATNB. Nonetheless, we saw, I think, 3 bullish indicators here, especially the favorite one, 10 SMA, and the position of MACD above the signal line. On the other hand, we want to see ATNB inching closer to maybe up until 1.55, so that the 10 SMA will cross above the 50-day simple moving average. We want to see this green line. We want to see the 10 SMA moving above the 50 SMA, and I don't see any problem at all with the 200-day SMAs, because it's already moving in a position where it is supposed to be. That is, if you prefer to see ATNB moving perfectly in a bullish trend. Okay, so resistance is at 1.65, support is at 1.34. Now, perhaps you are interested to see what's above 1.65. What is the psychological resistance above 1.65? So I plotted in advance the Fibonacci extension for ATNB. I'm going to zoom this in so that we can check what the psychological resistance is above 1.54. So let's take a look. It's 1.65, meaning to say, even when the price crosses above 1.54, 1.65 will become the psychological resistance for ATNB. My overall sentiment, but before the overall sentiment, let's take a look first by the way of the volume review. So for today, 1.50 got 25.50% of today's volume, followed by 1.48 with 18%, followed by 1.47 with the 16%, almost equal to 1.51 with 16% as well. In other words, if you're going to trade ATNB next week on Monday, watch out for 1.47 to 1.51, that particular range. Okay? For my overall sentiment, I'm actually bullish. I'm bullish on ATNB. If you do have a position on ATNB, regardless on whether you enter the position near 1.34, or maybe if you enter the position near 1.34, just stick with your trailing stop loss. I think by now you already have some paper gains. On the other hand, if you enter the position on ATNB near 1.5, be more conscious about your decisions on ATNB. Okay, on ATNB, because it's not every day. It's, as you can see on the volume histogram, it's not every day. There's no consistency in terms of registering a volume above its 10-day volume average. So maybe there are some occasional volatility issues on ATNB. Okay, so be more alert if you enter the position of near 1.5. Okay, there you go. Now, if you don't have any position on ATNB yet, you can do a test buy. At what price? Though that range that I mentioned a while back. Again, that's 1.47 all the way to 1.51. So that's my analysis and overall sentiment and recommendations for the top 5 gainers on March 1, 2019. Okay, now let's resume discussing the top 5 losers as of March 1, 2019. The first one in the list is BDO. Now, if you still recall, BDO was the biggest loser yesterday as well. It appeared in the video that I published yesterday. Now let's take a look at the chart of BDO. BDO closed at 123.70 with an intraday high of 129.70 and an intraday low of 121.50. My bearish conviction or my bearish stance yesterday appeared to be true today, as the price made an attempt to kiss the support at 123 pesos and 123.30, somewhere near that range. I still maintain, as early as now, I'm already telling you my overall sentiment on BDO. I still maintain my bearish overall sentiment on this particular stock. For long-term investors, especially that this stock is included in our investment guide for long-term investing, I would say that if you do have some extra time to monitor this stock, please postpone your top-up schedule for BDO, but postpone it until when? Okay. Now, first things first, you have to monitor next week if the price, if there are no signs of any reversal near 123 pesos, that's the support level. If there are no signs of any reversal, I would suggest that you wait near 115. Then if on that level there are still no signs of any reversal, I would suggest that you wait near 108, the major support. Okay? The major support at 108 pesos. Now, if you do see some signs of reversal near 123 pesos, let's say the price did not go down. Let's say the price did not go down below 123 pesos. Let's say it managed to hold above that line. Then you can then resume your top-up schedule for BDO. Okay. Now, actually, that's already the action plan if you already have BDO. Now, but if you don't have BDO yet, don't rush. Okay, don't rush into thinking that it's already too cheap to be ignored. Actually, if the price does not respect this volume, then it could go cheaper next week. So might as well stay on a wait and see mode. Okay, so net foreign investors also registered a big net foreign selling amounting to 277 million pesos today. MACD is still moving below the signal line. I see no presence of any imminent reversal or crossing over above the signal line, and today's closing is also below the 10-day simple moving average. So I still don't see any clear signs of any potential reversal as early as now. So, but let's wait and see come next week. Okay, and then BDO also maintains its risk level. It has a low risk level due to its volatility score of 45%. Now let's take a look at the price review of BDO. Okay, so for BDO, the price that got the biggest volume today was 123.70, the closing price itself. So at 123.70, this particular price point got roughly 14% of today's volume. So it's actually the only one that's most noticeable or most dominant in terms of volume size. And I think it also got the biggest number of trades, 646 trades at 123.70. And with 14% of volume being positioned at 123.70. So well, I think it's not 123.70. There's something here. Here, see this one, 128 pesos. At 128, this price point got 29% of today's volume, but with only 123 trades. Okay, so that's 123 trades compared to the 646 trades of 123.70. So there's a chance that some cross trades happened at 128 pesos. Okay, take a look at the cross trades for today on BDO. It's amounting to 264 million pesos. But of course, these cross trades also include those not so significant cross trades. When it comes to cross trades, I'm only interested to those sizable cross trades, particularly those ones that are amounting to millions of pesos. Okay. Anyway, there are two price points that I would suggest that you monitor next week, especially if you have a BDO for long-term investing. Monitor 128 first. But before you monitor 128, check and take a look if the price will manage to hold above 123.70. After all, this particular price point got the second biggest volume today. So monitor first at 123.70. If by next week, if next week BDO starts at a price higher than 123.70 and it comes with volume, let's say, then there's a possibility for 128 for the price to recover either near or above 128 pesos per share on BDO. Okay, so mark those two price points, 123.70 first and then 128 pesos. Okay, so there I already gave you my overall sentiment and my recommendations, regardless if you already have a position in BDO and if you don't have one yet. Okay, now let's move on to the next top loser for today, and we have FB San Miguel. Let's take a look at yesterday's video. If FB appeared, oh yeah, it did, but it appeared yesterday as the #1 gainer. Now it's the total opposite. Yesterday it was the biggest gainer yesterday. Now it's the second biggest loser as of Friday trading. Let's take a look at FB's chart. So today FB closed at 100 pesos per share with an intraday low of 98.90 and with an intraday high of 102.40. Support is still at 103 pesos, and the short-term support is at 98.60, while the short-term resistance is at 103 pesos. Although the price seems to be above, it's still above the 10-day simple moving average. I'm not so convinced. I'm not completely convinced that FB can manage to sustain or hold its position above 98.60. Why? Why did I say so? Because today's volume is still quite low. Okay, it's quite low. So that goes without saying that I'm still bearish on FB. Okay, I'm bearish on FB based on what I see on its chart for today. Also, the foreign investors did not participate today, so because they only registered 254,000 pesos worth of net foreign selling, and it seems also that I can see on the MACD histogram that it has bent a little bit, going to the southeast direction. Okay, and that's not the kind of direction. That's not the direction where we want to see the MACD. We prefer to see MACD going to the northeast direction, because if and when that happens, it means that the price is on the side of the bulls. But today there's I can smell some sense of indecision with the traders today. Number one, it's a relatively low volume because it's 50% below the 10-day volume average of FB, meaning to say, there's an indecision. FB traders are not so convinced on whether they will continue to vomit their shares or not. So they're still tinkering. They're still trying to watch what others might want to do from here, especially for next week. Now FB further also has a moderate risk level because of its volatility score of 69%. Now let's take a look at the price review or volume review of FB. Okay, so while we're waiting for the volume review to appear, okay, I think it's here now. Now let's take a look which particular price point earned the biggest volume. Okay, I got it already. So 100 pesos, the closing price of FB. That particular price point earned about 60% of today's volume, followed by 100 pesos and 10 centavos. Okay, now if there's a particular range that you should monitor next week, that would be 100 pesos all the way to 100.40. Again, 100 to 100.40. Monitor that particular range next week. If you see that the price is trying to maintain its position above that range, especially if that comes with strong volume, then there's a possibility for FB to retest the short-term resistance at 103 pesos. On the other hand, if the price starts low at 100, between 100 to 100.40, but with an anemic volume, then there's a high probability for FB to cross below 98.60. So take note of those possibilities, those data-driven possibilities based on what I have read on the volume review for FB. Okay, so again, I am bearish on FB. If you already have a position in FB, and assuming you managed to enter that position way back in the second week of February, it's either you sell near 103 pesos or wherever your trailing stop loss is, but I would suggest don't wait for the price to cross below 98.60. Now, if you don't have a position in FB yet and you are planning to trade this stock, my suggestion is that not yet. Do not hurry yet. Okay, wait for some confirmed buy signals. For example, you have to wait for the volume. You have to wait for the volume to kick in, especially above its 10-day volume average, and for the MACD somehow to change its curve from the southeast direction going to the northeast direction. Okay, so there are no confirmed buy signals yet, so don't rush yet into the idea of trading FB next week if you don't have a position yet on this particular stock. Okay, now let's take a look at the third loser for today. So we have green. So let's pull up the chart of green. Okay, so Greenergy Holdings. So it closed today at 3.35, and that 3.50, its short-term resistance. Apparently that it looks like it's a strong resistance because it bounced away from 3.50. Nonetheless, it's volume-wise, it's not so significant because it's still below the 10-day volume average of Greenergy. Let's take a look at the total turnover value of Greenergy for today. It was 45 million, about roughly 46 million for today. Okay, so the price is still moving above the 10 simple moving average. However, take a look at this. However, MACD is moving below the signal line. That's not what we prefer, and you know that. We want MACD, we want the blue line to be moving above the red line, the signal line. Okay, and just in case you'd like to know, maybe you'd like to know, what is the next resistance above 3.50? So I plotted my Fibonacci extension for us to be able to see that. Let me now zoom this chart in. I'm going to zoom it in and then drag the chart a little bit to the bottom. Let's take a look at the position of the 161.8% Fibonacci extension. There you go. It's at 450. Meaning to say that the psychological resistance above 350 is at 450. It's a 1 peso difference. Okay, 1 peso higher than 350. Immediate support is at 2.90. Okay. Now, green has a low risk level because of its volatility score of 42%. Now, let's take a look at the volume review for Greenergy. So today, the price at 3.40. Okay, here we go. 3.40 got roughly 35% of today's volume, followed by 3.35 with 17%, followed by 3.36 with 11%. So what's the range that is worth monitoring by next week, assuming you are going to trade green? First, you have to monitor this zone, 3.42, 3.35 to 3.42. Okay, I suggest you monitor 3.35 to 3.42 on Monday. Okay, again, 3.35 to 3.42. Why that range? That range got the biggest volume today, and that's where most of the trades were registered as well. Okay, that particular range, 3.32, 3.35 to 3.42. Now, what's my overall sentiment on green? I'm actually bearish on green. I'm bearish on green. I'm not convinced that, well, of course, unless volume will start to pick up here, unless the volume will multiply its 10-day volume average by 2. Even when that happens, then that will change my overall sentiment from bearish to bullish. But as far as what I see here, in as far as the volume is concerned, I am bearish on green. I'm actually in the red zone on green, so to say. Okay, so what should you do if you have green? Well, the first things first, I need to ask you, at what price did you buy your green? If you bought green when the first confirmed buy signal was spotted sometime in January 30 or February 1, January 31, 2019, if that's where you entered your position on green, then I think it's still okay to hold your position, because if you observe, or if you applied 5 to 10% of risk, then I bet your trailing stop loss has not been hit yet. That is, if you bought green sometime in January 31st. That was when the price was still ranging between 2.40 and 3.36. Oh, not 3.36. 2.39 rather. 2.39 to 2.99. Okay, 2.39 and 2.99. Again, if you entered the position on green between 2.39 and 2.99, and if you applied 5 to 10% of risk, then I think it's still okay to hold your position on green. However, if you enter the position on green when it was priced between 3.15 to 3.15 and higher, you should really monitor your position on green then, because if the price decides to continue to bounce away from 3.50, then it's just a few fluctuations away from getting your trailing stop loss hit. Okay, now if you don't have green yet, is it now the best time to buy? No, I would say that you should wait. You should wait for the price to inch closer to 3.15, and hopefully the price will go deeper all the way to 2.90 because that will increase the upside potential. Assuming that the traders will think or translate that the descent in price to 2.90 is already a price that's too cheap to be ignored. In other words, if the price goes all the way to 2.90, and if the traders would translate that as an opportunity to buy the stock up, if and when that happens, that will give us a big upside potential. What's the upside potential? It's the difference between 3.50 and 2.90. That's 60 cents. Okay? 60 cents. So that's my overall sentiment, and that's my trade setup or recommendation for those who already have a position on green and for those who are just planning to trade this particular name. Now let's take a look at the fourth top loser for today. So we have Semirara. It's a mining company. So what do we get on Semirara's chart? Let's take a look. Today Semirara closed at 21.75 with an intraday high of 22.50 and an intraday low of 21 pesos. It broke below the support at 22.5 obviously. Now we have to identify now where the major support is. So I have plotted the Fibonacci extension. 161.8% is pegged at 17.98. So let's just round it up. Let's make that 18 pesos. Support is now at 18 pesos. Current price is at 21.75 and 22.50 is now acting as the immediate resistance. Now, if it will bounce away and continue, if it will bounce away and if it will regain its position above 22.50, the resistance that we're eyeing now is at 25 pesos. But at the moment, it's below 22.50. So this particular 22.50 stands as its immediate resistance. Volume-wise, today's bearish price action came with a bearish volume as well. It's above its 10-day volume average, meaning to say SCC traders were relatively convinced that it was worth it to sell their SCC position. Foreign investors have continued their net foreign selling activity, and since for how many days? Let's take a look. For how many days have they been selling SCC? Let's use this date range so we can count here up to here. So for the past 18 trading days, foreign investors did nothing but register a net foreign selling activity on Semirara. Okay. Now the MACD is also still busy moving below. It's moving in a bearish divergence from the signal line. Nope, no signs of reversal yet. No SOR, signs of reversal. No signs of reversals yet. SEC has a risk level. It has a low risk level because of its volatility score 24%. Again, not because a stock is tagged as a low risk stock. It does not automatically mean that it is safe to trade that name. No. Not all low-risk stocks are good to play with, good to buy. Okay? So for now, wait for the price to find its psychological bottom. Maybe the dust will try to settle down near 20 pesos or all the way to 18. So let's be on a wait and see mode until next week. Okay? Apparently, based on what I see on the volume, it seems I think based on what I see on the volume chart, it seems that there's a continuation for the bearish price action of SEC until next week, or even beyond next week. But let's see next week. So let's take a look at the volume review for Semirara. 22 pesos got the biggest volume today at 19%. 22 pesos got 19% of today's volume, followed by 21.75. 21.75 earned about 16% of today's volume. So next week, monitor 21.70 to 22 pesos if you have a position on SEC. Again, monitor 21.70 all the way to 22 pesos. If SEC will start on Monday within that range, and if the volume continues, and if it only shows a very thin volume within the first 15 to 30 minutes, and the price is moving or playing within that range, 21.70 to 22 pesos, then it maintains the possibility for the price to inch closer to 20 pesos per share. A bearish sentiment. However, if the price moves above 22 pesos with thick volume, then there's a possibility then for SEC to regain its position above the immediate resistance at 22.50. So those are two conditional statements, okay? Okay, now my overall sentiment is bearish. And if you have a position on SEC, there's no point of holding that because it's been on an SEC has been in a downtrend channel since September 2017. Okay, if you still have SEC up until now, what are you still seeing that's worth holding? What do you see that makes it worth to hold your position on SEC? Okay, that's my question for you, because for me, it's not worth it to hold or to add SEC in your long-term investment portfolio. Okay, so do not justify your being long-term in a supposedly short-term position in any stock. Don't use that as a justification for the mistake. Okay. You should have already sold your position on SEC by now. It may not be emotionally easy, but at least if you cannot sell everything, at least trim your losses, meaning to say sell some shares in tranches. Okay. Now, if you don't have SEC yet, just like the recommendation that I gave to the other stocks that we talked about a while back, do not rush yet. Wait for the price to try to wait and see if the price will settle down at 20 pesos per share. If the downtrend continues, then monitor 18 pesos and see if the dust will settle down at 18 pesos per share. Okay, now let's move on to the last top loser for today, and we have DNL. Did I talk about DNL yesterday? Okay, nope. DNL wasn't in the list of the top 5 gainers and top 5 losers yesterday. Okay, now let's take a look at the chart of DNL. Okay, DNL closed today at 11.16 with an intraday high of 11.68 and an intraday low of 11.16. The price continues to distance itself below the 10-day simple moving average. This is definitely a bearish signal for me, especially that MACD just increases its distance below the signal line. And in addition to that, foreign investors sold about 15 million pesos worth of shares today. And in addition to my bearish sentiment, this tall red candlestick came with a tall volume bar as well. And that this volume bar is also above the 10-day volume average. Remember, if it's a red candlestick and the volume bar is above the 10-day volume average, meaning to say the traders of that stock were really convinced to join the 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 selling appetite of the other traders toward the stock. Okay, so do I see a continuation, a possible continuation of this uh, pull down of price by next week? Yes, I do. Okay, because of this volume. DNL is part of our investment guide for long-term investing. So if you do have some extra time to do some monitoring, and next week is your top-up schedule, for example, do not top up yet for next week. Wait for the price to inch much closer to 10.99 or 11 pesos. Because if that happens, then there's a big possibility for the price to retest this intersection between what first? Intersection between these three simple moving averages. It's about around 10.55 or 10.55 to 10.60. Again, if the price continues to inch closer to 11 pesos, and if that bearish price action comes with a tall volume as well, tall bearish volume, then there's a big possibility for this intersection of moving averages to be retested, and that is 10.55 to 10.60. Okay, this particular horizontal line that I have just plotted right now, just a few seconds ago rather. Okay, now if the price continues to move below 10.55, the next midterm support that I see here is at 10 pesos, near 10 pesos. It's the precursor to 9.70. Okay, so in a staggered manner, if the price moves below 11 pesos, then you need to wait at 10.55. If you see that there's a strong bearish momentum or bearish action, price action, then don't rush again into the idea of topping up 10.55. Try to wait again at 10 pesos. But just do these things, okay? Just do these things if you do have some extra time to do some price monitoring. Now, if you are a busy employee or a busy entrepreneur, I would suggest that it's generally okay to buy, to buy at those prices, the price points that are indicated on our long-term investment tab right here. Let's type in DNL. These prices, okay, the ones that you see on the video. It's okay. It's generally okay to buy at any of these price points that we indicate for your convenience. However, if you have some extra time to do some price monitoring, like what I mentioned a while back, then it would be better to monitor these price points that I've mentioned: 11, 10.55, 10 pesos, and then 9.70. Okay. All indicators are bearish at this point for DNL. Okay. But generally speaking, if you don't have some extra time to do some price monitoring, just follow your top-up schedule. And again, don't buy at any price. We don't buy at any price here. That's not our mantra here. Instead of buying at any price, I am trying to help you to buy at those prices that I think where you will benefit, where you will profit the most. These top 5 prices, trades, top 5 prices, volume, VWAP, top 10 players buying average, etc. Okay, these are your guides. These are your candidates, your candidate price points where you should park your buying price. Okay, so I've given you my sentiment, my overall sentiment for DNL and the trade setup. Actually, it's an investment setup. Okay, for DNL. If you do have a position and if you don't have a position yet. Oh, by the way, if you don't have a position on DNL yet, same advice. Monitor the price at 11 pesos first, then 10.55, 10 all the way to 9.70. Do not hurry yet, okay? You're not missing the bus yet. You're not yet missing the bus, okay? So again, those are the stocks that I have talked about in today's top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis. Every day, by the end of every trading day, I'm going to record a video where I will be discussing my latest technical analysis with recommendations or trade setups for the top 5 gainers and the top 5 losers that got the biggest value, total turnover value. Take note of that, okay? It's based on the total turnover value and not on the volume. Okay, so there you go. If you do have some questions, please post them in our private clients forum. As soon as this video is uploaded, I do also create a new thread inside the short-term trading section. For example, these threads yesterday, I opened them. Video, top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis, February 28, and then February 27. If you do have some questions regarding any of those 10 stocks that I covered in the video, then please take a look. Find that thread that is specific for the top 5 gainers and top 5 losers video for that day. Okay, so don't post your question in any random thread. You need to find the right thread so that we can have a focused and concentrated discussion inside our private clients forum. I do hope these things help you trade independently and invest profitably. Again, my name is JC De Guzman, Chief Technical Analyst for Equilist Analytics. Enjoy your weekend.